Let's unpack this now with legal expert Dr. Suhayfa Bhamjee, senior lecturer in criminal law at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Dr. Bhamjee, good evening. Thank you so much for your time. This is a very unique, unusual, and perhaps even extraordinary case. It seems as though, and I could be wrong on this, but it seems as though that the evidence team of the Nkabinde Inquiry does not have any witnesses.
Yeah, evening, Oliver, and what a brilliant question. I think that really came across very strongly, particularly to the latter of the day, which was quite a long day in its entirety. I mean, to cut to the chase, whether Shamila Batohi was going to give evidence today or not, the next logical thing is to keep the ball rolling, to keep matters moving. Who will you call next? And that completely unraveled. We saw that eventually the evidence leaders conceded that two of the witnesses had indicated that they were going to withdraw and not interested or would not be giving evidence. Others that we would need until the end of February because they were currently involved in other matters. And so there was just not sort of a follow through. And Justice Nkabinde said as much to the evidence leaders, and she just was not impressed that they just seemed completely unprepared. I think they had, and as she said, I can't quite remember the turn of phrase she used, but they sort of took it, I suppose, as a given that if they've asked for an adjournment, they will be given it. And clearly that unraveled.
Yeah, let's talk about Shamila Batohi very quickly. She is not willing to go any further if she doesn't get legal representation. She asked the Minister of Justice for legal representation, at least for the department or for the NPA to foot the bill for that legal representation. They said no. Is she entitled to legal representation?
Well, that's the thing. It's a question worth asking, and I think that's certainly a procedural and a constitutional question. Perhaps that legal representation question should have been asked much earlier on. Certainly at the conception of the Commission of Inquiry, we've seen that when evidence leaders were talking about General Boyson's coming to give testimony, that he'd be giving his statements, etc., with the guidance of his counsel. So I suppose there is something to be said about having a representative in your corner, I suppose, while giving testimony. But if we think about it, the conflict, that word, the difficulty here is that what Shamila Batohi was asking for was counsel that she could appoint of her own accord or her own choosing outside of anyone linked to the NPA, including Hali and Advocate Hali and his team. And for that, she would want the NPA to then have to pay for it, probably on the auspices that these questioning and answering that she's undergoing is while she is representative of the NPA. But again, she did say in December that what she wanted to do was protect her own integrity. So it's a double-edged sword there. I'm not sure. I mean, we'd have to talk to some constitutional experts about the right to legal representation. But I mean, she is essentially, for want of the better word, she's brought this complaint. She's the one who sort of initiated to the president to move forward with this matter. So why is the counsel from the NPA not suitable? I suppose Hali sort of began to answer that question for us regarding conflicts of interests, but we'll only know when things unravel or open up a bit more on Thursday.
Yeah, Johan Boyson's another key witness here, particularly pertaining to the matters of the Cato Mena hit squad unit. We found out today that Johan Boyson, who does have legal representation, had prepared a statement. The statement was to be finalized over the holiday period in December, but his legal representation then got involved. The statement is today not yet finalized. What's the complexity around him, and how important is he as a witness in this inquiry?
Well, I think it's definitely, as far as, there's a number of allegations related to Advocate Chauke's fitness to stand trial, related to, which prosecutions he was pushing, which ones he wasn't, which ones he sort of frustrated, well, allegedly frustrated. And Boyson's testimony relates to one of those matters. So, but the fit and proper inquiry is in its entirety. So, and Shamila Batohi pretty much sits at that sort of intersect of all those other offshoots. So Boyson's testimony will be important, but again, how it ties up in relation to the end result about whether the allegations made or the referrals made for his suspension are warranted or not, or were warranted or not, stand sort of at that intersection. But again, to say that, you know, a case isn't made on any single witness, but it does sort of falter when we think in criminal law terms, certainly when the complainant themselves starts to step back. And it's not just the complainant here stepping back. We've also got witnesses who, from within the NPA themselves, as described by the evidence leaders today, have indicated that they're no longer willing to testify.
Yeah. And we heard about several other people who are advocates who were part of the NPA, who are no longer part of the NPA, who are unwilling to testify. At least 3 names came up today in the inquiry. Why is this so controversial? Of course, it's important to say that the inquiry doesn't have subpoena powers. So anyone can really say, I'm not interested, and there's nothing the inquiry can actually do about it. At least Justice Nkabinde said, why don't you guys approach the minister and complain about it to the minister? You're doing work here on behalf of an appointment by the president. How did that play out, and how can the inquiry solve the crisis of people being unwilling to assist it in collecting evidence?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tricky one. Like, you know, we know that commissions of inquiries aren't courts per se, and they can't subpoena, etc. But I think, again, the evidence leaders were put on the back foot and then eventually sort of said, no, we think we should maybe just write to the minister. But again, this was after Justice Nkabinde raised that as a possibility or as an opportunity. But again, I don't know what the compulsion of the witnesses, what sort of compulsion the commission can make on witnesses. I mean, if this was a court, we'd be looking at hostile witnesses and that sort of thing. So again, commissions of inquiry are much more tricky, I think, because of what their nature is and what comes after the process. So there's certainly something worth, again, exploring there.
Just lastly here, so if I'm out of time, terribly so, is Andrew Chauke being prejudiced by these constant delays?
Well, prejudiced in the sense that his matter isn't coming to finality. And Advocate Nkabinde said it quite succinctly that either way, whatever the outcome of this commission of inquiry is, Advocate Chauke deserves sort of finality or an answer or an outcome or a finding. And I think that really does sum it up pretty succinctly. I mean, either way, whichever way the finding is, he needs to know where he's standing. It can't carry on indefinitely. And that's what these postponements and adjournments may well end up doing.
And legally, can this commission be called off?
I don't know about called off. Probably, you know, if it hasn't quite reached its mandate due to all of these delays, I do wonder if there's some sort of civil action for the costs perhaps wasted, or whether there'll be prerogative from the president to extend the inquiry. But again, there are budgetary time constraints there.
Yeah, certainly a cost concern there, given the 2 very experienced counsels sitting in the corner of Andrew Chauke. We're going to have to leave it there, Dr. Suhayfa Bhamjee. Really do appreciate it.